When life's challenges sneak in, sometimes you're the new mom, like Riley, but other times you're the kid. Our next story explores what it's like to be the child in the midst of struggle and how ultimately mom's role is important on both sides of the equation. Here's Deanna Spiotta and with I Want My Mom.
I opened my groggy eyes to see what I always see, a room full of blurry shapes and colors. I remembered that I was in the hospital, but where were my glasses? I must have lost track of them after the extremely painful episode I had just experienced. I was in the hospital enduring a severe flare of ulcerative colitis, an autoimmune disease and chronic illness that has no cure. It means that throughout my life, I will be periodically dealing with abdominal pain that feels like the sound a steak makes when it hits a hot pan. That's the only way I can think how to describe it. These periods of symptoms are called flares. As my eyes adjusted, I made sense of the blurry shapes and realized that my 61-year-old mother was standing at the end of my hospital bed watching me, her 31-year-old daughter, sleep. It hit me in that moment how traumatic that episode must have been, not only for me, but for her. Just about 30 minutes before, she had watched me struggle with abdominal pain so severe that my nurse and patient care tech had to lift me off the bathroom floor and into my hospital bed. It was the most horrible thing I've ever experienced. But in that moment, I wonder what it must be like to watch your child endure such intense pain and not be able to take it away from her. And I wondered if that pain is almost worse. "You caught me," said my mother, referring to the fact that she had been watching me sleep. It made me think of the few times that I vaguely remember catching her watch me sleep as a child. It also made me wonder how many times I hadn't caught her. Something about my mother watching me sleep brought me an innate and familiar comfort. It reminded me how she used to read the last few pages of Goodnight Moon to me as a child. I can always hear her voice read it as if she's right next to me. Goodnight stars and goodnight air, goodnight noises everywhere. Moments throughout that flare gave me new perspective on what age I will stop needing and depending on my mother. When I pictured my adult self as a child, I pictured calling my mom every week, sharing family dinners, being close friends, and talking to her about my husband and my kids, which it turns out I don't have yet. But I never pictured her literally holding my hand as I writhed in pain on my bathroom floor. I never pictured her being by my side as my primary caregiver while I was dealing with a chronic illness. This experience made me realize that the bond between mother and baby persists throughout adult life, and that mothering doesn't end at the age of 18, 25, 30, or even beyond. Nights in the hospital were not very restful. Aside from my pain keeping me up and my vitals being checked every couple hours, for some reason I needed blood work done at 1 a.m. every morning. Each morning this was an upsetting process. I already get really anxious when getting blood work done, but I also have small veins that are hard to find, and when they are found, I'm told that they roll. So it's difficult for a phlebotomist to stick me with a needle once and be done. One morning, I was stuck 6 times, and they still didn't successfully draw my blood. I was trying to hold back my tears, not very successfully, when they said they'd come back and try again later. Once they left and I was alone, I let it all out, and as I sobbed, I said out loud to my dark, empty room, "I want my mom." A part of me didn't want to tell her that the next morning, because I knew it was painful for her to not be able to sleep over in the hospital with me. Before I had been admitted to the hospital that December of 2018, my mom knew that this flare was the worst yet. One night, she came to sleep over at my house. She prepared what little food I could tolerate and brought me my medicine when I couldn't get out of bed to take it. That night, I crawled back into my bed from the bathroom after another horrible bout of pain and asked my mom to come lay next to me and hold my hand. I asked her if we could sing Be Not Afraid, a hymn that was sung in church throughout my childhood. So my 61-year-old mother and my 31-year-old self, mother and baby, lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and we sang, Be not afraid, I go before you always, come follow me, and I will give you rest. At times we couldn't remember all the words to every verse, even though Google helped, but it didn't even matter. I just needed my mom by my side, in it, with me. Good night stars and good night air, good night noises everywhere.